Tonight on Skyline, the world looks more unstable than it has in years. Iran is no longer just threatening America militarily, but it is now challenging America legally, politically, psychologically, and economically, all at the same time. US President Mr. Donald Trump, he is issuing nuclear ultimatums. Iran's new supreme leader, he is openly threatening the Gulf nation hosting the US military bases. Pakistan is refusing to bow to Trump's Abraham Accord pressure. Europe appears to be quietly supporting America's military buildup. And now, even New York politics is turning explosive after Indian origin politician Mr. Zoran Mamdani. He triggered backlash with his aggressive housing and economic reform plans. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's stories are not just isolated headlines. Together, they reveal something much larger that is happening globally. The old global order, it is becoming unstable. America is still the world's most powerful military force though, but increasingly, countries no longer appear afraid to openly challenge Washington publicly. In fact, rivals are becoming bolder, alliances are becoming complicated, and every regional conflict, it now instantly affects the oil market, inflation, migration, politics, and public fear worldwide. And at the same time, ordinary people are the ones who are paying the price for geopolitical chaos. Fuel prices rise, food becomes expensive, shipping costs increase. In fact, global uncertainty spreads with social media turning every conflict into psychological warfare. And perhaps the most dangerous part, nobody seems fully in control anymore. Every country now appears to be preparing for a future where diplomacy may fail completely. Military aircrafts are moving, nuclear threats are escalating, propaganda wars are exploding online, and governments are openly discussing scenarios that once sounded impossible. Tonight, we break down 9 explosive stories changing the future of global politics, the West Asia, and America's position in the whole world. I'm Driti Atri, and this is Skyline. Tonight, Iran is shifting its strategy in the Strait of Hormuz from direct military confrontation to something potentially even more dangerous. Legal sovereignty. That's right. Iranian analyst Fawd, speaking to Russian state media RT, he openly argued that the United States has no legal right to dominate the Persian Gulf because America is 11,000 kilometers away and only truly has authority near the Gulf of Mexico. Now, this matters because Iran is no longer framing Hormuz simply as a military battlefield. Well, Tehran is now trying to rewrite the entire legal argument around the waterway itself. Azadi claimed that the Strait of Hormuz contains no true international waters and it belongs entirely to Iran and Oman. According to him, Tehran therefore has the full legal right to regulate navigation, impose shipping fees, restrict the access and challenge foreign military movement through the choke point here. In fact, he compared Iran's argument to countries like Turkey controlling the Bosphorus Strait, Canada regulating Arctic water, and Australia enforcing sovereignty around maritime route. But tonight, what makes this extremely dangerous? It is the economic impact Hormuz has globally. Well, near 20% of the global oil shipment it passes through this narrow passage. Even temporary instability over here, it can trigger rising petrol prices, inflation spike, stock market panic, in fact, airline fuel cost increase and global shipping disruption. All at once, by the way. Well, here Iran do understands all that perfectly. Tehran knows that it cannot overpower America conventionally. But by creating legal ambiguity and strategic pressure around Hormuz, Iran can create global economic anxiety almost instantly. And in the meantime, tonight, analysts fear that Tehran is slowly trying to normalize one major idea, and that too, internationally. The idea that America's military presence in the Persian Gulf itself, it may be illegitimate. Well, this is no longer just a conflict over missiles or drones. It is becoming a battle over who controls the future rules of the whole West Asia. And yes, while Iran challenges America legally, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, He is now openly threatening the Gulf nations hosting the US military bases. Well, tonight, Iran's new leader, Mojtaba, he's issuing one of the strongest anti-American warnings yet. In fact, in a written telegram statement, Khamenei declared that the Gulf countries would no longer act as protective shield for the US military bases in their region. Well, now here, the timing that is extremely alarming, because this whole statement, it comes while Tehran and Washington, they are still discussing the possible diplomatic framework just to normalize the tension here. Yet, simultaneously, look what's happening. Iran continues threatening retaliation against the United States. And yes, not just United States, their allies, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, in fact, any nation that is helping the United States military operations in the whole region. In the meantime, Khamenei warned very clearly that if neighboring nations permit American military bases located within their territories to be used against Iran, then Iran will show them no mercy. Now, understand the strategic importance here. America's West Asia military network depends heavily on the Gulf bases, and that too for several reasons, including the fighter operations, including the missile defense, naval logistics, intelligence gathering, and rapid deployment capabilities. Well, here, if Iran directly attacks those bases, the war could rapidly spread beyond Iran and Israel into a full regional confrontation involving multiple countries simultaneously. So tonight, there is also growing speculation surrounding Mojtaba Khamenei's health itself. That's right. Reports claim that he may have suffered severe leg injury and is now conducting high-level meetings through video conferences from the hidden location. Yet, despite those rumors, his rhetoric that is becoming more aggressive. He called America the Great Satan and Israel its trained beast, while claiming Israel would disappear within 25 years. That's right, Iran now appears determined to project just one message here. America's era of unquestioned dominance in the whole West Asia is now ending permanently. And yes, while Iran escalates rhetorically, Mr. Donald Trump is now responding with dramatic nuclear ultimatums of his own. Tonight, Mr. Donald Trump is dramatically escalating pressure on Iran over its enriched uranium stockpile. According to reports, Mr. Trump outlined three possible paths for Tehran moving forward. First, transfer enriched uranium to the United States. Second, destroy it inside Iran. Or third, eliminate it at another internationally approved location. Well, this particular issue, it is now becoming the single biggest flashpoint involving America, Iran, Israel, Russia, and global nuclear diplomacy. Well, here, Russia reportedly offered to temporarily store the uranium, but Mr. Trump, he appears unwilling to fully trust Moscow's involvement in such a sensitive process. So, now tonight, this reveals Washington's deepest fear. Fear that Iran could move dangerously close to nuclear weapon capabilities, which is going to be very bad for the entire region. But here, let's flip the coin. Iran insists that its nuclear program, it is peaceful. It is designed for energy and civilian use. But Israel and many Western governments also, they believe that Tehran's growing uranium stockpile, that creates unacceptable strategic risk. Here, Trump's message tonight, that is simple but aggressive. Iran must surrender control of its uranium one way or another. Let's talk about Tehran's perspective. Surrendering uranium under American pressure, it will look politically humiliating domestically, right? Iranian leaders, they fear appearing weak internally after years of presenting nuclear independence just as a symbol of sovereignty and resistance here. So tonight, all sides appear trapped. America demands guarantee. Yes. Iran demands what? Sovereignty. Israel demands security, Russia seeks influence, and nobody fully trusts anybody anymore. And perhaps the most frightening part? Nuclear negotiations are no longer happening quietly behind the closed doors. They are becoming public political theater filled with threats, ultimatums, propaganda, and psychological pressure. And while Mr. Trump pressurizes Iran over uranium, Pakistan is now refusing another major Trump proposal, and that too entirely this time. Tonight, Pakistan is openly rejecting Mr. Donald Trump's attempt to expand the Abraham Accord, across the Muslim world. Well, Mr. Trump, he reportedly wants Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, even Egypt and Jordan just to formally normalize relationship with Israel as part of a future West Asia settlement framework. While posting on Truth Social, Mr. Trump described participation as mandatory and warned the countries that are unwilling to join should not be part of this particular deal. Here Islamabad responded immediately. Pakistan said that it remains under no compulsion just to recognize Israel and repeated its long-standing policy. There will be no recognition without a sovereign Palestinian state. Their defense minister, Khwaja Asif, he criticized Israel sharply and questioned whether Israeli commitments could even be trusted politically or not. In fact, their foreign minister, Ishaq Dar, he also ruled out any immediate policy shift. Now tonight, one fascinating detail. It is creating huge online discussion. If Pakistan ever officially recognizes Israel, the country may literally need to redesign its passport. You know why? Because Pakistani passport currently includes the printed line. That means that this particular passport, it is valid for all countries of the entire world except for Israel. That's right. So basically that means normalization would not just be symbolic diplomacy. Pakistan would need to rewrite one of the clearest legal statements inside its national identity document themselves. And this kind of reveals how emotionally and ideologically sensitive the Israel issue remains, and that too inside Pakistan particularly. Religious politics, public opinion, regional identity, all are deeply tied to the Palestinian cause here. So tonight, Pakistan, one of the weakest Muslim country, it is essentially trying to balance multiple things all at once. Pressure from America, relationship with the Gulf countries, domestic politics, and ideological positioning itself. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, while Pakistan resists Mr. Trump diplomatically, Iran is now trying to humiliate America publicly through military propaganda. Iran's IRGC, they are publicly claiming that they successfully shot down an American MQ-9 Reaper drone near Bandar Abbas. In fact, Iranian state media released footage, it says, proof the American aircraft were destroyed during the operation connected to the ongoing conflict here. Ladies and gentlemen, at the very same time, additional reports are emerging about another American F-35 allegedly lost or damaged near Iranian territory here. Tehran is aggressively using these claims to portray the United States military operation as vulnerable and unsuccessful. And while every single claim it is fully verified or not, it is already sending a lot of panic. Psychologically, the impact that matters a lot, because Iran understands that modern warfare, it is no longer only about battlefield victories. It is also about perception. It is about humiliation. It is about psychological influence, and that too all together. So if Tehran successfully convinces the regional audience that it is dominating the United States aircraft in their region, American aircraft can be hit, US drones can be destroyed, and Washington is not fully dominant here. So then Iran, it gains symbolic momentum, and that too across the West Asia. Mr. Trump, though, he continues insisting that America is winning. But Iran is kind of responding with propaganda footage, drone kill video, military graphics, and viral social media campaigns. Tonight, reports suggest that Iran is now demanding access to nearly $24 billion, and that too in frozen assets, as part of a high-level negotiations aimed at reducing attacks on the US bases and lowering the regional tension here. And tonight, this kind of reveals how modern warfare increasingly operates economically as much as militarily. Iran wants a lot of things. Things like sanction relief, frozen funds released, guarantees against the future attack, and oil export protection, along with the broader economic concessions here. While America continues balancing military pressure, diplomacy, sanction, and regional alliances. And the strangest reality tonight is, well, both the countries continue negotiations and escalating at the same time. Military strike continue, drone interception continue. In fact, threat continue, but diplomacy, that also continues quietly in parallel. Qatar is reportedly emerging as a key negotiation center because it kind of maintains relationship with both Tehran and Washington. But here analysts, they fear the negotiations themselves. They are becoming strategic pressure tool basically. Iran escalates militarily to gain leverage. America tightens sanctions to gain leverage, and both the sides hope the other eventually compromises first. And while negotiations continue, Europe now appears to be very quietly preparing for something much larger, but this time militarily. Tonight, Europe is reportedly becoming a critical logistics support hub for the US military operations that are linked to Iran tension here. Satellite images and flight tracking data, it reportedly shows large buildups of KC-135 aerial refueling aircraft across bases in the United Kingdom, Germany, and broader NATO infrastructure zones. Now, these are the aircrafts that are extremely important because they do allow long-range bombing mission. They allow sustained air operation. They allow the aerial fighter refueling, intelligence mission, and extended military presence, and that too over the whole West Asia. In the meantime, military analysts, they say that this type of build-up, it strongly suggests preparation for prolonged operational capability rather than symbolic short-term deployment here. Well, Iranian media itself, it is already accusing the whole Europe of quietly helping America expand military pressure against Washington here. And tonight, one major fear, it's growing again and again. If NATO infrastructure becomes deeply involved operationally, Iran could eventually widen cyber retaliation or maybe political retaliation beyond the whole West Asia itself. And this also reveals something very important, but this time strategically. Washington may not be acting alone nearly as much as Tehran publicly claims. Europe may be more involved behind the scenes than many people do realize. And yes, while military alliances quietly prepare for escalation, political controversy is now exploding inside New York City itself. Indian origin New York Mayor Mr. Zoran Mamdani, he is facing intense backlash after unveiling a sweeping housing and economic reform plan called Block by Block. Mr. Mamdani says that New York is becoming impossible for the ordinary people to survive, and rent prices are exploding. Middle-class families are leaving the city. Young professionals are drowning in expenses. And even people earning very decent salaries say that they cannot afford a stable housing anymore. According to reports, average rent in parts of New York City, it has crossed record level, while grocery price, transportation cost, and healthcare expenses that continue rising sharply. And that is why Mr. Mamdani's proposal, it includes aggressive affordable housing construction, stronger tenant protection, in fact pressure on bad landlords, extended public housing rent stabilization measures, worker protection, and larger government involvement in housing market here. Well, supporters, they say that this particular plan, it finally addresses New York's affordability disaster very seriously. Many young voters, they argue that America's biggest cities are becoming playgrounds only for billionaires, corporations, and wealthy investors, while ordinary working families, they struggle to survive paycheck to paycheck. But critics, they are very angry. Business groups and conservative commentators, they accuse Mr. Mamdani of pushing socialist-style policy that could scare developers away, reduce the investment, hurt property market, and create long-term economic instability. Some opponents even compared parts of the proposal to government-controlled housing experiments that kind of failed historically. And tonight, the controversy that is becoming deeply emotional because New York itself, it symbolizes modern American inequality. Luxury skyscrapers that continue rising while homelessness, rent stress, and financial anxiety spread across working-class neighborhoods. In fact, many immigrants, they are also divided over Mr. Mamdani. Some Indian Americans support his focus on affordability and worker protection, while others, they fear aggressive government intervention. It could damage business confidence and economic growth, specifically in a city like New York. New York is becoming a political battlefield, by the way, and that too over one giant question. Should governments interfere more aggressively just to protect the ordinary people from economic collapse? Or would that make America's economic problems even worse. And in the end, while political battlefield intensifies in New York, tragedy has struck Washington state after a horrifying industrial disaster. Emergency responders remain on high alert after a deadly chemical tank explosion, and that too at a Nippon Diana Wave packaging facility in Washington state, killed multiple people and critically injured several others. Authorities say that the industrial tank, it ruptured violently inside the facility, triggering a massive explosion-like impulsion that kind of caused severe burns, chemical exposure injury, and emergency evacuation with panic across multiple areas. With large-scale hazardous material response operations, several victims were rushed to nearby hospitals in very critical condition, while firefighters and other teams they worked together for hours just to secure the site and prevent further chemical danger. Now tonight, investigators they are still trying to understand exactly what caused this particular disaster. Early reports suggest that pressure build-up on industrial malfunction. It may have triggered the implosion here, but officials have not really ruled out equipment failure, maintenance issue, or any chemical handling problem. And this particular tragedy, it is reopening larger fear across America about industrial workplace safety. Because while global headlines focus on wars, missiles, and geopolitics, millions of ordinary people, they still face dangerous conditions every single day. Well, it can be anywhere. It can be inside a factory, inside a chemical plant, warehouse, construction site, in fact, manufacturing facility. Industrial safety experts, they warn that many American facilities, they are aging rapidly, while companies face increasing pressure to cut the operational cost and improve the efficiency further. Tonight, local residents are also demanding transparency about any possible environmental impact. Authorities currently insist that there is no immediate threat to any surrounding community, but fears over chemical exposure that remains high among nearby families. And sadly, tragedies like this, it exposes another painful reality. While politicians debate global power struggle, ordinary workers continue risking their entire lives simply trying to earn a living every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's stories may seem disconnected at first. Iranian threat, Trump's ultimatums here, Pakistan's resistance, European military build-up, economic frustration, in fact, industrial disaster. But together, they reveal one terrifying reality. The world is entering a far more unstable era. America is being challenged here. Militarily, economically, politically, and even psychologically, along with diplomatically, all at once, by the way. In the meantime, Iran is becoming more and more aggressive. Global alliances are shifting rapidly. Economic frustration, it is refueling the whole political extremism, and diplomacy increasingly feels temporary and fragile. At the very same time, ordinary people everywhere, they are paying the price through inflation, through energy shock, war anxiety, job insecurity, and non-stop global uncertainty. So tonight, the world increasingly feels like it is moving towards a future where every regional crisis, it risks becoming global. I'm Driti Atri, this was Skyline, and trust me, the next phase of this geopolitical balance of power, it may not be the same.